Alright, welcome back to the finals of Grand Prix Queenstown. And here we have Nyx versus CyberChronometer. It's already part ways into game 1, so Nyx is on
So
blue-red
next is on
tempo.
blue-red tempo, Cyber's on 5-color value stuff, I guess. Pretty classic Harvey Thunder Roads S deck.
They're running Veer in the sideboard, right? At their first mate?
Yeah, but they didn't swap.
Okay.
So far, all that's happened, turn 1 Ragavan on the draw, gets answered by a bot experience. Nyx does actually miss sequence on turn 2, playing Falconeer post-combat, not making use of the elemental having flying. Though it doesn't end up mattering because the Pith Wilt does answer the Falconeer.
Well, I guess it's not super obvious or to remember that your RAM token has flying.
Yeah, maybe the first time they're playing against a bot experience.
Well, Cyber
But
is in trouble right now. They've missed a land drop.
yeah, Cyber kept a really sketchy 7. I think I call it 7. It's not wasn't too bad. Did have out body and Pithwelt, but the mana situation is a bit tragic. They need to draw specifically a red source to play Fulman, and that's not even going to be good enough here with Sinkhole and Portal Fracture waiting in Nyx's hand.
Well, they
They
have
could even
Terraform's Globe.
yeah, but Nyx could actually totally just Portal Fracture this if they wanted to.
They probably should, actually. Like,
Yeah,
because your
it's
opponent
definitely
just skipped the land drop, so you know that they're kind of screwed right now.
yeah, it's definitely a bit on the rude side, I'd say, but definitely pretty valid. You could also just let it resolve, play Panya. Don't think that would be too unreasonable.
Ooh, Portal Factor's
The
online now.
but yeah, this Portal Fracture is going to be absolutely brutal. And a single land drop makes Panya alive too. So
Not even single land drop, you have the treasure
oh
already.
yeah, they even have the treasure. So yeah, this looks very over. I think Cyber's on 0 outs here actually.
Hey, look, there is a land. They can't play Foeman. One turn too late, though.
Yeah. It'd be like a couple turns too late at this point.
I mean, if they
But
managed
yeah,
to drop Foeman on curve, would that have done anything?
yeah, Fellman and Curve would have done a lot, but even Fellman last turn gets hit by a counter by the sinkhole that would have hit the Terraformer's Globe, and then Fracture is going to hit something on the following turn.
Does Nixus have lethal right now?
Yep.
Yep. Well, that's a quick game 1. Although I joined halfway through, but that was turn 5, right?
Yeah, that was turn 5 sounds right. But definitely kind of shows at least some of the novelties of this matchup where yes, Cyber's top end is not very good against counter spells. They do have Thunder Road, which is good against counter spells, but didn't get there. And keeping a relatively greedy 7, I think I call it greedy. Not the craziest, but relying on out of body experience is kind of sketchy. Part of the reason I don't really like that card very much.
Yeah.
Um,
So, sideboarding time, I guess? Oh, the
yeah,
Nyx is already
so
ready, huh?
yeah, I think Nyx's sideboarding is reasonably straightforward. I mean, the burn spells are all kind of sketchy. Whereas, like, you want Imperial Sieges, you want Steal the Pandemonium, Spell Pierce. A Crest is maybe not the best in the main deck, and everything else is good.
Okay.
This is Mhm.
What about on Cyber's side?
On Cyber's side, the sideboarding is probably a bit more complex. I think generally their cards are like a bit harder to tell whether they're actually good or not in this matchup because you have stuff like glitch. Is glitch good in this matchup? Because if you do get glitch down, then you do just kind of win. But also resolving 5-drop in this matchup is probably pretty hard.
What's Veer's first mate condition? Do you need to keep track of that?
I think in this matchup, probably not. I'm not quite sure how the deck is set up, but I can't imagine you ever bringing Vera in here.
Okay.
Uh, like, I think any hand you'd bring in VF with, you'd probably just mulligan. Or you probably should mulligan. Other things Cyber can consider is bringing in Thought Blossom. Not a crazy hardest matchup, though might be a bit too clunky. Nyx's deck does have a lot of creatures in it. Children of the Clouds, I think, is pretty good in this matchup with Team of Falconeer and
Yeah, definitely.
Ghetto Rider triggering it natively.
And also it's instant speed, so you can play around counter spells with that.
Yeah. And then depending on how you want to play the matchup, Singularity's Grasp and Stand Unassailable are decent options. I don't know if you want all of them.
I mean, surely you
Uh,
don't bring in Stand Unassailable, right? That seems way too slow. Like, this is not the right matchup for it, right?
yeah, but you also do want some amount of life gain. Like,
You have Thunder Roads, that's enough life gain, right?
I suppose so, but you
You
do
also
need to
have
get 5
Sundry's Command.
mana. Um, Children's.
Sandrine's command.
Chandrins. Yeah, but you do only have one copy. I don't think it's crazy to side and stand and just say that it will buy you a turn at the very least. And I do think this matchup can get pretty. I wouldn't be surprised if the matchup ends up being a bit of a slugfest. Obviously, didn't really see that in the game one, but I don't think it's crazy to see Slime Planeswalker clearing something off the board, Nyx playing something that kills the Planeswalker, repeat, 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 and the game stalling out a bit. So that coalescence sentence might end up mattering. One of the things about Nyx's deck, because I did play this deck last GP,
Yeah.
is that you really do need multiple threats on board to really kill your opponent. Unlike other tempo decks, where if you just have a team of Falconeer in play, then that doesn't, you're killing in like 6-7 turns. Unlike most tempo decks, which kill a lot faster.
Are you talking about like Team of Falconeer with a flyer in play or just on its own?
Just with the ETB flyer.
Right.
Because like if we're comparing it to like more traditional tempo threats like Delve of Secrets or I mean Murktide. I guess Murktide isn't necessarily traditional, but more like prowess threats, Marseille Swiftspear.
Or I
These
guess
all kill
in
a lot faster.
MSEM, Available Meddler and Bounty of the Garden.
Yeah, Bounty of the Garden. Those are. I'm not super sure if that comparison holds just because those kill really fast, but they also come down pretty late. Panya is another one of those cards where it's like, well, does Panya kill very fast? I don't know, but you do need multiple threats to even have a decent clock.
Right.
So if Cyber does end up fighting back a bit more in the game two, actually drops the Fulman on curve, then could definitely become pretty slugfesty. And that extra 7 life could give Cyber an extra 2 turns to get the land drops down, end up paying for the cosmic sinkholes and portal fractures. Nyx is also probably slowing down, going sideboarding, playing a lot more counter spells, a lot less burn. So
Omnis Cyber actually lets you grind pretty well, right?
yeah, absolutely. I think I know playing against Nyx twice this GP, and I think in all the 5 games they got down to like less than 30 cards in deck, basically just off Omnis Discovery. Where Omnis Discovery is just kind of a pretty incredible filtering slash card advantage card.
And like most people aren't gonna try to play around the rerun because you can't really.
Yeah, like you just kind of have to eat the rerun. Like you can't really afford to let tempo just have threats in play all the time. Obviously there is some exception to that. Like in Cyber's deck, we did see Edibot Experience in game one that doesn't trigger the rerun. Some of the planeswalkers don't either. They have a Ajani Resolute, which exiles. They have Lucian, which also exiles on -3. But most of the stuff does kill, not exile. So
Ooh, game 2 is starting.
so hopefully we'll
And
see more lands from Cyber here.
that's a pretty decent starting hand from Nyx, I think. They have, oh, never mind, they don't have a 1-drop.
Yeah, they don't have a threat. Is
They have Omnis
the awkward thing.
Discovery.
Yeah, but I don't know if you want to give Cyber that much time to start getting stuff set up because no, Honest Discovery is a sorcery. That is the big downside of it compared to what Planet Far Far Away.
Yeah, or I guess Ready for Anything.
Yeah, ready for anything. Another good call. I'm a little bit surprised that Nyx left in the Void Flares. I suppose that's just to clean up Planeswalkers.
Well, Nyx can't keep this hand, so they're gonna have to mulligan again. Cyber goes down to 6 cards. They threw away I guess, a kind of risky 6 because they only had 2 lands, but they had a Terraformer's Globe.
Yeah, Nyx ends up mulliganing their 6. Wasn't the craziest 6, but pretty, I think, a good mulligan. It had a Mountain, a Ragavan, and an Imperial Siege, but no second land.
Yeah.
And this 5 is pretty good on their end.
They bottomed the right cards, right? They bottomed McCain Dancer land.
Yeah, I think that's probably makes sense. It does make the hand look at least a little bit
Riskier, I guess.
yeah,
Non-interactive.
like just doesn't have that much like bite to it, I guess. Where I was talking about how this deck doesn't generally have that many threat, or it needs multiple threats to kind of win, and having a Ragavan and a Panya is the only way to advance the game. Void Flare being a bit awkward, not being counterspell, does make it a bit awkward. They did find Omnis Discovery, which does help this hand a lot, I think. Gives that a little bit of power to it.
Cyber can't Solar Flare on turn 2. That might be a problem because Ragavan's gonna get hit in. Foeman, they can drop it on curve this game.
Yeah, I don't think Ragavan will get a hit in. I don't know if that's going to be too much of a problem unless Nick specifically draws a counterspell here, because Fulman is looking pretty hot in this game. I suppose Panya, if Nyx holds it up, will clear it, but if Nyx just goes Honest Discovery here, which I think is the natural thing to do,
Yeah,
then
definitely.
Fulman will kill the Ragavan and then plus on the next turn, maybe enforcing the Void Flare, or saving them a lot of life.
And there's Omnis Discovery. Let's see what Nyx flips.
I suppose Fulman would trigger the Honest Discovery, which does maybe give Nick's natural like a Getaway Rider, which clears Fulman pretty nicely. They decide to take Falconeer off the first one.
What did they bin? A Cosmic Sinkhole. Interesting.
Yeah, I think that definitely seems like a bit of a hard call, because you do want the sinkhole. You don't have any counter spells at the moment, but you also do want the threat.
Nyx is complaining about a 5-card starting hand, and Giant Poe is asking if it's game 2. It is game 2.
So, is there a world where you don't just jam Fulman and -2 here?
You can keep up Thought Blossom, I guess, if you really want to.
I suppose you do have the Soulflower and Ragavan as another option, though that seems sketchier than just playing Fulman.
Yeah, like just take your value now. So Fulman is already a 2-for-1. Or I guess, is
It
it
does
more
match
than...
the. I mean, it's a 2-for-1 that's still in play. It does match the 2-for-1 off the Omnis Discovery. Um,
Cyber's getting lots of lands this game. Do they have
uh,
Thunder Roads augmented next turn, or I mean the turn after next turn?
if they have, if they can Thought Boss on something, yes. Also, Nyx did miss the Ragavan treasure,
Oh,
which is unfortunate on their end. Um,
that's a pretty big miss trigger.
yeah, definitely important to remember your triggers. Beneficial triggers, so not appropriate for us to call it out.
They're thinking about Imperial Siege.
Uh-huh.
Can Terraformers Globe with Imperial Siege, or does that not work that way?
It just becomes a land type, so it doesn't become basic.
Okay.
I
Like,
believe so. I believe that like Blood Moon lands are still non-basic.
the Nyx is taking quite some time to decide. Unfortunately, we don't get to see what Nyx saw, so we can't really talk about the decision-making process while they're making the decision.
Yeah, so Imperial Siege is
What they
at
take,
least pretty solid. Well,
and
yeah, I think the other option would have been Ragavan. So I think Imperial Siege is probably the right call here. With the most natural line just being Imperial Siege, the Tundra, and then Void Flare, the Foreman. But
so
if you want to keep some more stuff on board, you can play Panya instead of Void Flaying the Foreman, maybe.
I mean, if you let Fallman tick up, then now you can't kill it easily, right?
Only goes up to 2. You do give another loot, but the Void Flare will check it next turn.
I mean, if you drop the Panya, that means Teamer Falconer becomes alive next turn.
Yeah, so your sequencing would be Siege plus Panya, and then Falconeer plus Void Flare on the
Oh no,
following turn.
Siege plus hold up Panya,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. End of turn, Panya.
Try to represent a cosmic sinkhole.
Other sequencing things you could do here is Siege plus Void Flare, expecting Panya next turn. And the reason you'd be doing that is because you might be able to get Panya Tail on
Well,
the following turn if
you
you hit
have
another land.
you have gotten the Panya to if you remembered your Ragavan trigger.
Yeah, but I mean, they're pretty likely to get it anyways.
Globe does not try
Um,
to let you dodge that. Yeah, Cyber answering my question.
yeah, I think Cyber was the one that called out the Amulet layers thing, so
Yeah,
I'll trust that they know their rule stuff. No, it does seem like Nyx is thinking on Void Flare versus Panya. So they did play the Wayfarer Shrine, which I guess the mana is probably good enough that it doesn't matter whether they fetch a island or a mountain here. Deck does have 2 of both, so
if I was in Nyx's spot, I think I would be holding up Panya because I really want the Teamer Falconer to come down next turn.
yeah. The reason I don't remember if I finished explaining why you'd hold on to Panya, but even just having Panya in play for one less turn does make it less likely to die, which is nice. And then obviously you do prevent the loot off the Fulman. Maybe there's some minor things like what if your Void Flare is countered, for example. Then the Fulman gets into a trigger off and looking pretty bad for you.
Actually, I think the Void Bear is going to get countered because Cyber has nothing else to do with their mana this turn.
Well, Nyx is playing Panya at the end of turn, so
Oh,
that might be a tempting target for a Solar Flare.
yeah. And Cyber gets to discard a land. I'm assuming they just discard the planes here, right? Or no, they can just discard a Nebula because they already have Terraformer's Globe. Or
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of Cyber's mana pip situation, but I feel like you're comfortable enough life total that the mana being a bit better off Nebula might be better than Plains.
They discard the fetch land, which makes sense
Yeah, not
because that
unreasonable
costs
either.
too much mana or too much life if you want to play untapped. They have 3 basics right
Uh,
now to, lift the Imperial Siege
that,
that Nick's already played.
yeah, I think discarding the Cataract also means that they are probably Thunder Roadsing the Panya here as opposed to Solar Flaring. Because if they were intending to Solar Flare, they could just play the Cataract tapped as opposed to playing the Plains.
I guess I guess you're all right with just using up a Thunder Roads or an augmented Thunder Roads because you already have a second copy.
Yeah, because you only have
Or
the Thought Blossom to trigger it now, but they do decide to go for the Solar Flare, which maybe that makes the next turn a bit awkward because they can't go Thought Blossom plus Solar Flare.
yeah, I guess it's just the sort of situation where like you want to go for the higher value play, but you don't realize how much that's going to cost you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not bad.
Well, I mean,
And
if
Nick
Cyber never gets
definitely
to
doesn't have the hand to punish it.
if Cyber never gets to augment the Thunder Roads or never gets to augment 2 Thunder Roads this game, then playing Solar Flare there was strictly worse than playing Thunder Roads.
Yeah, I would guess that you only need one Augmented Thunder Roads to win this game. But that's what comes up. Cyber also doesn't know what Nyx has in hand, but
Well, the thing is,
but
like, also, if you have 4 mana, you can Solar Flare through a Portal Fracture, but you can't Thunder Roads through it.
that is a good point. Yeah. So how much of a threat that is when your opponent has nothing in play is kind of debatable. Nyx also doesn't have Wanderlust activated for Portal Fracture here.
They're gonna pass without playing Teamer Falconeer, just holding a Portal Fracture.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like this is kind of playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win.
Meanwhile, Cyber draws another land and passes. So Cyber has Thunder Roads augmented up next turn.
Yeah, if the Thought Blossom does hit a target. There's a quick note on Nyx's sequencing. They could have played the Torrent instead of the Wayfair Shrine on the last turn, and then played the Wayfair Shrine and not cracked it, which would have given them Wanderlust for the Portal Fracture if Cyber had something to play on their last turn.
Interesting.
Because you can hold the Wayfair Shrine in play as for the Wanderlust.
Right.
So do you just fire for Thunder Roads on the Falconeer here?
I think you wait until, or actually, yeah, good point.
Like, if this was a Soul Flare, it'd be no questions asked, but Cyber does decide to
Cyber,
not.
I guess Cyber wants to, I mean, Cyber thinks that they can augment it if they want to, so they're just gonna wait until they can, I guess.
And they do seem like they're getting rewarded for that with the off E draw. So now they can play off E. If they hit a land, they can augment Thunder Road.
And that ends the game, probably.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe, I'm pretty sure it's a definitely at that point.
I mean, Nyx does have. No, I guess the Portal Fracture isn't Wanderlusted. So, yeah, they won't have any threats, and Cyber would be at 26. And
I mean, you can Portal Fracture this one if you want. It forces them to tap out, so it prevents any 3-drops from coming out after the RFE.
yeah, I mean, this is the kind of like maybe it's correct to Portal Fracture this in like a cosmic kind of sense, but if you do Portal Fracture it, it's like, well, not looking so hot.
Also, Nick's noticing the alternative art on this card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have a lot
Um,
of fan art from different franchises in this format, just because people keep submitting secret layers.
yeah, I suppose so. So Saba does not hit the land, which doesn't put them in as good of a spot.
This is
And they have to decide on
actually
Thought Blossom versus Stand, and they decide to just hold up Thought Blossom. Not
it's,
sure how I feel about that one.
so now Teamer Falconer gets a swing in.
Yeah, so I think Nyx might be back in this game with this Nebula draw giving them Wanderlust. Because now, even if Thunder Roads does happen, they can actually double fracture for 4 tokens and keep the Falconeer and the token alive.
Yeah, actually, yeah, Cyber not like holding up Thought Blossom there is probably not the right play because Nyx is never going to play anything at sorcery speed
Yeah,
that would
I mean,
matter.
there's also some of the logic being that Stan does augment Thunder Roads, which is important here.
Right.
So we don't need to draw land for a glimpse. The Falconeer is also getting a scry here, so that will definitely help out. See if Nyx can find a Ominous Discovery or Panya or something here.
They bottom a mountain. Well, there's Singularity's Grasp, which is going to get countered.
Yeah, I can't imagine you doing anything besides just going Stand Unsaleable Thunder Road here.
I wonder if I mean no, Nyx is never going to Pearl Fracture to stand.
Yeah, that seems pretty sketchy to be doing that, especially when you know your opponent has at least 4 more spells in hand because they missed a land drop last turn.
Actually, even if the Thunder Road gets double portal factored, Cyber's still in a really good spot because next turn they can Singularity's Grasp to augment the Thunder Road.
Oh
And then,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
the deck can't be two Thunder
But
Roads, right?
I mean, they can also just oh, so I was just going off face, huh? I guess that's fair with the North Thunder fan.
I mean, it
So
doesn't
if Nyx
actually matter
wants,
where, or it didn't end up mattering where Cyber pointed it because Nyx was going to double portal factor it anyways.
well, no, Nyx doesn't have to double Portal Fracture though. Like I think I'd be much more inclined to double Portal Fracture this if two of them were going the creatures. But now I think you can just
Oh.
Portal Fracture one of them.
Nyx didn't realize that it's on cast.
Yeah, Thunder Road's pretty good. Does decide to still double Portal Fracture.
I mean, you might as well use up your mana, right? Get the get the
Yeah.
portal factor tokens while you can.
So they will need to draw a counterspell here as they lose to just casting Singularity's Grasp. Though I suppose that actually does the Falconeer actually doesn't die to Grasp for 3, so if they do
Ooh,
hit it, ooh.
ooh. Okay, this actually no. Cyber's at way too much high of a life total for next to beat down with Teamer Falconer on its own, and Cyber will just get to stabilize after playing Singularity's Grasp.
Yeah, but I mean Nyx does have 5 lands, a scry. I mean Panya does do a lot. So does Getaway Rider. I mean,
Right,
though I guess Getaway Rider is pretty bad. Crimson the Stack does kind of wreck Getaway Rider at least a little bit. That upkeep
right.
trigger actually mattering. I suppose it wrecks Panya too.
Does it?
uh,
Oh yeah, right. You can just wait. Panya's right. You can't go infinite with Panya, but you do get to take an extra turn every other turn.
yeah, but see, Imperial Siege does open up at least some possibility here. Because Cyber will need to draw a blacks, or I guess not, any land works if they want to. Okay, well,
That's
there's a
convenient.
replacement Nebula.
I mean, like, do you just Singularity's Grasp for X equals 1 here? Because your opponent has no counter spells. So you might as well just take, like, the board wipe before you Thunder Roads.
Maybe.
Like, it's safer to just wipe the board here, right? Because Teamer Falconer on its own doesn't do much.
Yeah, I think probably whatever you're doing here probably works fine. You do have Thought Blossom up still for a potential Omnis Discovery.
Yeah, so I guess the only bad draw from your opponent is,
Get a rider
yeah.
or a Panya, I guess.
Is Panya even bad for you? You need, like, your opponent needs to top deck a land plus a Panya, and they can't do that in one turn.
Yeah, but they can play Panya at end of turn, which maybe is concern, because you can't augment Thunder Roads at instant speed with Thought Blossom.
Oof. Well, this line would have been really good if Nyx had a Panya, but unfortunately they don't.
Yeah. Notably, Nyx only has one basic left in the deck, so
Wait,
might be a
what happened to CyberChronometer's mana fixing?
died to the Singularity's
Oh,
Grasp.
right, it killed your own mana fixer. Interesting.
Yeah, but I guess this Glimpse Stack also works against the Falconeer as a ETB, and presumably, I don't think Nyx can actually just beat this Glimpse of the Stack, to be honest.
Did they not play
Getting a 1/1
bounce?
every turn. Well, I don't know if they have Crest in the deck, but even if they did find a Crest, then I don't know if that would be good enough.
Nyx is not attaching the card to the glimpse. Nyx, when something exiles your card, you should attach it, not like just hand it over to them because it's
Yeah,
easier
it doesn't
when the
matter.
Falcon leaves.
Like, it's actually easier for your opponent to have it sometimes. So, like, because if they can, like, cast the card, for example, so, like, Thought Blossom, you should just give it to them,
Right.
because otherwise they need to ask you to unattach it.
But for stuff like O-Rings and Vanishing Lights, it's easier to just attach because when your thing gets killed, you don't have to ask your opponent for it back. Or I guess your
Yeah.
opponent doesn't have to ask for it back. And Nyx
Yeah,
gets
next.
3 land draws in a row. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that was even after bottoming 2 lands off the Falconeer. So, very sad.
Very womp womp.
Cyber does have lethal here, though, with Pith Wilt on the own bird. Oh, no, sorry, one of the birds doesn't have haste. Yeah, they can Pith Wilt, one of their own things, to activate Thunder Road.
That's hilarious.
Nyx definitely should be putting out lands here.
Well, they're trying to bluff Cosmic Sinkhole for 3, I guess.
Yeah, but the thing is that, like, especially after drawing Still the Pandemonium, because, like, your opponent kind of knows you have nothing when you're not doing anything and
Well,
they're
I mean,
just sitting.
Cyber's not playing any spells
Yeah.
either, so maybe Nyx is just sitting on a bunch of Cosmic Sinkholes.
Yeah,
But I guess Cyber's just fine with Nyx doing nothing.
it does look like we're going to a game 3.
That's exciting.
Uh,
Ooh,
it's
Cane
2 years.
Dancer. Let's
Yeah,
see.
Cane Dancer doesn't help too much here.
You can get back on this discovery, which is why you should have been playing lands, because Cane Dancer gets you some more cards that you can play.
Yeah, still Pandemonium Clue as well.
Nyx just passes. We're 4 birds already.
I think at this point, Nyx just loses to the birds. Forget even the glimpse or the cards Cyber has in hand. They just lose to the birds.
Okay, Nyx is going to try to end up turn Cane Dancer.
Yeah, and this is going to be met with a Thought Blossom plus Thunder Roads combo.
Can Thought Blossom steal a flashback spell?
That's a good question.
I'm assuming the answer is yes, because it's the same interaction between Unearth and Blink, right?
I think this might be. I forget what order replacements that effects apply in.
I think you just get to choose, right?
Well, yeah, but they're different people, right?
Right.
I don't know if that
So
matters.
active. I think it's like active player chooses. Well, I guess it
Uh,
won't matter because Cyber is not going to cast Thunderbolts. Nyx is just going to concede before that.
so moving on to game 3. Nyx definitely would. I think Nyx probably has decent chances here with being on the play. Also, not super unlikely to also mulligan to 5 in this game, like they did in the last one. Probably have. Well, if they were on 2 more cards in the last game, I think they'd have pretty decent chances, even with those 2 Thunder Roads.
Actually, have you been observing Nyx's plays? Like, are they mulliganing more aggressively than you do when you're playing this deck, or are they mulliganing about the same rate that you do?
I mean, I've agreed with those 2 mulligans in the game 2. Like, I think actually the mulligan in game 2, the 7, is a hand a lot of people would have kept and would have lost because of it.
Really?
Yeah, because
What was the hand again? I forgot.
it was 2 lands. I think like an Honest Discovery, a Portal Fraction, a Void Flare, and a King
Oh yeah,
Dancer or
right,
something.
right. I remember now.
But that's just kind of hand where it's like you can play it, but it's not really good. Where if you're in like there's a bit of a stretch, but if you're like saying limited, oh yeah, that's a hand you're fine keeping because your deck's pretty anonymous. The power level is lower, so going down cards not as important. But a lot of times, just having a hand that actually lets you play your game is really important.
Right.
So having a hand that doesn't really work with what the game plan you're trying to achieve, which is in this case attacking, is definitely worth mulliganing. Like I know you mulligan a lot when you're playing ramp. I
Yeah.
assume specifically for Primal Surgeons, just because that does let you play your game.
Yeah, and
At
I'll
least
often
real
mulligan
fast.
down to 5 super aggressively.
And there are absolutely matchups you can.
Huh. Well, that's a lot of Ragavans. You keep
Yeah,
this?
so I think you do keep this.
What do you do if your opponent doesn't have a removal spell?
You play MPL Siege and you spell pierce. Like this is the kind of hand that like ignore the triple Ragran. Just look at like as a 5 card hand, this is a pretty good 5 card hand.
Right.
Um, like does need a bit of help, but the triple Ragavan is like whatever. You keep this on 6 with double Ragavan, you keep this on 5 with 1 Ragavan. And the triple Ragavan does help at least a little bit because you know that you aren't losing to a wheel spell. Um,
Right. Or 2. Or 3, actually.
um,
Right? Because by the time you have your third Ragavan down, you probably drew something already.
yeah, so Cyber decides to swap in Via,
For
which I
what?
think is for Children of the Clouds,
Huh, that's...
which I think is a pretty bad mistake, honestly.
I agree.
Um,
Like, come on, you brought in Children of Clouds from the sideboard just for this matchup, and then you swap it out?
like that's the kind of like mind you, I'm really low on Via as a companion in general, not companion, first main in general, just because you don't want a 5 drop in your opening hand, very simply. But especially in this matchup, where it's like your opponent's playing Imperial Siege, your opponent's playing Sinkhole, your opponent's playing Portal Fracture, and Children of Clouds actually helps you survive. But Via does not let you do that.
And also, you already have Glitch. You don't need
Well,
another
they
5
did
drop.
just draw a glitch, to
Okay,
be
fine,
honest, to
but...
be fair. But good example is like, yeah, you have this turn and the next 4 or 5, maybe even more turns if you don't hit your land drops to find a glitch. And that's even presuming that Via is better than Children of Clouds in this role in the first place.
Yeah, Nyx's deck is full of X1s, right? Children just trades super well.
Yeah, Panya and Ragvan, the Falconeer token, and Getaway Rider tokens, kind of.
So Cyber does draw out body, at least.
Yeah, they don't draw a basic, so they are going to be vulnerable to this Peel Siege.
I think you're
And thanks to
fine with
Ragavan, they will
that.
have spell pierce up.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
do
I can
need to
find you.
remove Ragavan here, right?
Yeah, I think Nyx probably lets this resolve, right?
Yeah, because you have Ragavan number 2 and Ragavan number 3.
Yeah, the whole squad. That does mean Imperial Siege is a bit more awkward here because you'd be going shields down, but they are deciding to play it. It looks
I
like.
mean, like, what's the worst thing their opponent can do on 2 mana at sorcery speed, right?
I suppose that's fair. Cyber doesn't have a Sheldrain's Rage or anything.
Like, this is a situation where Children of Clouds would actually be good here because it would trade with Ragavan.
Yeah, Cyber just straight up doesn't have any way to remove this Ragavan, and I think like Amelie Nyx is pretty low damage wise at the moment with only Ragavan and the Elemental. But it's looking hard to see how Cyber will get past these the spell pierce and the Portal Fracture.
I think it's gonna have to start with playing Terraform's Globe and hoping to hit lands.
Yeah, I think even if they hit a land here, I'm not quite sure they're getting past this.
They
And
have
that
one
is
more turn
definitely
to
not a land.
top deck a land, I guess.
Mm,
Game Dancer. Ooh, that's even good. That's gonna be more Portal Factors.
yeah. If this is another place where you really regret this being an out of body experience as opposed to literally any other one mana removal spell, because this elemental is increasing Nyx's damage by 50%.
Right.
And Singulary's Grasp will pick it up, but if that's only if Singulary's Grasp resolves. So
Well, drawing a land is a good start. I mean, Cyber has 2 Singularities Grasps to try to get through Nyx's counter spells, at least.
yeah, so imagine you just so it goes for Foreman
I
first.
mean, yeah, that makes sense. You want to
Yeah.
play to your outs, which is make your opponent have it, because otherwise you're kind of screwed.
Next goes for Fracture, makes sense. Using your mana most efficiently.
So what's the clock
And
on Cyber right now?
it's pretty fast. Giant's Falconeer is kind of bad. Oh, I guess it's not bad because you have a spell PS2, Magic
Yeah.
Grasp.
And Temur
But
Falconeer will
I
see the blue elemental with flying.
yep. Well, if Nyx notices it, which they do.
Good. They actually remembered this time.
Hmm. Also Discovery on top, which they bottom.
I mean, it makes sense. They don't need Ominous Discovery right now. They have more than enough cards. They need lands right now. Actually, do they need lands? They have tons of treasure.
Yeah, lands are pretty good for the Fracture off the Cane Dancer. Probably not the biggest deal with how much treasure they have and how cheap their hand is, but
Okay, that's another basic land.
yeah, but without enough mana to pay for the spell pierce, they are definitely cutting it close. Nobody this Falconeer will also grow out of range of grass for what for like anything basically.
Yeah, what's Cyber
Which
going down to next turn?
I was going to 5, and the
Oh,
Falconeer is going up to 3, and the Void Flare is dealing 2, so
yeah.
looking great.
Well, that's even more counter spells. So would keeping Children of Clouds been good here? Like, would that have saved Cyber?
I don't think so, but if they definitely could have mattered because Via definitely wouldn't have done anything. Whereas at the least, if it did come down to Via, then Children of the Clouds actually does help them, whereas Via just leaves them to die.
I mean, I
It's kind of like
guess
one turn behind
like
the Children of the Clouds.
Children could have like traded with a Ragavan for 2 mana. That's like not the
Yeah, I
worst thing
don't
in the
think they
world.
had a chance to do that, if
What
I
do you mean
remember
a
correctly.
chance? Like it's more than a chance, right? Because Nyx is gonna have 2 creatures in play.
No, I mean straight up, they didn't have the mana.
Yeah.
Because I think the only times they could have done that was instead of playing Terraform's Globe, which you don't really want to be doing. I believe so, right? Because I think they played the Terraform's Globe and whiffed, and then hit the land next draw set, which they played Foreman. So they never had 2 mana open to play Children.
I mean, if they had children, they wouldn't have needed to outvalue the Ragavan, right? Because Cyber was up on mana that turn. Or wait, that Nyx only had 1 creature
Yeah,
back
but
then, right?
yeah, but this Singulary's Grasp is a last desperate measure for Cyber. Wouldn't have even done enough if it was solved, because Falconeer plus Void Flare does enough.
You could have outvalued the Void Flare
And
if it resolved. I mean, yeah, outvalued the Temur Falconeer if Nyx didn't have any counter spells.
well, yeah, I suppose Cyber did draw the other body. But even that won't be enough with the single one Nyx's hand. And a really comfortable game 3 for Nyx.
I mean, like the Nyx's deck did exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, more or less. Definitely shows kind of the how fragile I guess Cyber's deck is to these kind of tempo strategies, or even just like missing land drops in general. Well, obviously, it wasn't great that they missed the land drops for. Wait, did they only miss one land drop?
Yeah. Or did it? No, I don't think they missed any land drops this game. Because the turn they played Terraformers Globe, they already played a land, right?
No, I don't think so.
Like one of their lands got blown up, so that's why they were down on a land.
I need to check the replay
Yeah,
for
let's
that.
check the
But
replays.
definitely, Definitely does uh, show the. I mean, Ragavan definitely a big part of getting the mana for that. That wouldn't matter much if Nyx just drew a land or two. But it definitely does show some amount of weakness in relying on these kind of big stabilizing spells like grasp, like synchronized grasp, or kind of like even Fulmin being a bit awkward if you're behind. Very easy for it to not work. It is a little bit, maybe a bit unfortunate that the other games were like especially close. With the game one, Cyber not taking any lands. So Nyx just kind of won game two. Nyx going to 5, being on the draw. Definitely puts them in a bit of a hole, and then not drawing any real way to keep them in the game. And then game three, pretty straightforward steamrolling from Nyx with the help of the Imperial Siege.
Yeah. So congratulations
Thanks
to
for
Nyx
listening.
for their first GP win, I think. When did they join the format?
A couple months ago,
Okay, that's pretty early. That's pretty
I
good.
think so.
Yeah.
I don't have a great sense of time. Which I guess Red Rise probably tells me, right? GB Ottawa,
So that's which GP was that one?
MNOPQ. So yeah, this is the third GP, I believe.
Like who won that GP? Because that's how I remember GPs at this point, like by who won them.
Zangi on Death Shadow.
Oh, that one, right. Yeah. Oh, the game's finally been closed. All right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when they played the Terraformers Globe, they need a land drop. And maybe I'm wrong with that. Oh no, no, they did. So yeah, you are right. They did have a land drop left. So in that situation, they could have just played a Chinlo Clouds for one. Nyx did have two creatures, one of them being the Elemental,
right. Yeah.
which is blue, right?
Yeah, it's blue.
All right. Token's a bit unclear. Yeah, maybe it would have been a line. Probably wouldn't have helped. Just
I mean, you would trade it with
uh,
Ragavan, or I guess a
yeah. I mean,
token.
Nyx had the Void Flare.
Okay, so that taps down next. That taps next out of a counter spell that turn, right? Or no, they still have
Well,
spell
they'd
pierce.
have the Spelpios.
Okay, so I
So they,
guess it slightly throws off their curve.
yeah. But then Cyber would be missing their land drop on the following turn. So they didn't even have anything to play
Right.
since they'd only be on. They'd just play the Terraformers Glow draw and only have 2 mana for the Thought Blossom, which doesn't do anything.
All right.
Yeah, big congrats to Nyx. Happy to see a reemergence of tempo in the format. Been a long time since God. When was the last time tempo won a GP?
Has Temple ever won a GP? I mean, of course they did. It did,
Uh,
but like, I'm pretty sure
you can't Rune Brawler.
Green Baller is a mid-range deck, right? That's what you called it.
I mean, kind of. You can argue for a couple classifications. I mean, it's playing a lot of temporary cards.
Yeah, but like,
Um,
Green
but I think that's the
Ballers.
kind of stretch we might have to make for tempo winning a GP recently.
That was
And even that's not recent.
that's last year. Wait, that's more than last year, right?
It's December 2021.
Wait, holy crap, that's already more than a year ago. Wait, okay,
uh,
yeah, I didn't realize it's been that
I
long.
doubt you want to count Cosmic Thunder Princess as a tempo deck.
It's a control
It did
deck.
definitely feel. To be fair, it did definitely feel like a tempo deck at times. When you're really whenever you're going like EOT Thunder Roads, Untap Thunder Roads, it feels like a tempo deck regardless of deck you're playing. I've done that in ramp, and it still feels like you're playing a tempo deck.
Sure, if you go with that
Yeah,
classification.
I think the closest like actual tempo deck would have been Room Brawler, or then before that, uh,
That was before our time, right?
what before that would have been
What are you looking at?
Frix's Goth, I think.
Oh yeah, that
I'm in the archives.
Dread
It's in
Rise
resource links.
or
The archives.
for the
If you scroll up
decks.
on top to oh no, there's a list of promo cards.
Oh where can you find that? Is it updated?
Resource links archives. It's
Okay,
updated to GPJ.
this thing.
So 7 GPs behind now. But I think so. Tempo is so if we do count Room Brawler, it's almost what is that, a year and a half? Wait, hold on. How do years work? Yeah, about a year and a half, or before that, almost 2 years.
Jeez.
Uh, Pretty sure. Yeah, GPK was Jund, Sketches, GPL was Eggs, GPM was GPM. Is that Ramp?
Oh, okay. So no, GPJ was ramp. I don't
Uh,
remember winning. Wait, which one was the Oxbox one?
yeah, that's my memory. GPM was Countertown.
Ah, right. That the one that I didn't pay super close attention to. Was I on Oxfox that GP?
Uh, you were on 8-sack.
Oh, right. That I tried to play 8-sack for one of the GPs.
Yeah, GPN was Oxfox.
That was Oxfox round
Um,
one. GPO is when I won with Oxfox, right?
no, I think you won GPN. You played Oxfox in GPL,
Okay.
and then you moved to 8-sack. GPO was Zangy, and then GPP was Little Pig.
Ramp.
Uh,
Yeah.
then GPQ, finally we got a tempo victory. Um,
Yep. And it's also a Purplemurasaki deck. So how many like what percentage of the Grand Prix winner decks are Purplemurasaki decks recently?
not that. Well, I mean, depends on. I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't remember your deck from GPO that much. I don't know how much that was based on what I shot you. Oh
Wait,
no, wait, no, not GPO. GPP.
the one, yeah, I think, I guess like ramp is, I did make a lot of changes to it, so maybe it is. Well, no, I think we built that deck during one of our late night deck
Yeah, I
building.
don't. Yeah, I guess you didn't make that many changes to it. Yeah, it seems pretty familiar from what I remember that.
Most of my changes were
So,
just like dropping out tutor targets and running four Fox Spears in the sideboard, which managed to pay off for me.
so yeah, I think it's 3 purple decks in a row at this point.
Hey,
I don't. I'm pretty sure next didn't make any changes to this.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the exact same as last GP.
Yeah. Um, but seems like it was a good decision. Obviously did win. Hell, if anything, it's more so their deck because I would have actually made some changes to it before running it back.
Really?
But yeah, actually, I mentioned a couple of times I thought the deck had problem. The deck needed like multiple threats to win. Where a lot of my wins end up being these like late game like slugfests where I probably should have won. I mean, I'd point to a game where I play against you on ramp where I needed to take all these super micro advantages to even like have a chance.
That was because I had instant speed with the masterwork, though.
Yeah. I mean that was definitely part of it, but definitely sort of went either way, and I definitely feel like you shouldn't be tempo shouldn't be winning the late game against ramp at the very least. Well, that's what actually happens. But a lot of my games, I did feel like I was getting a bit lucky, or like, and maybe that's just being me being really scared of playing tempo decks and being overly cautious about what my opponent can have.
Yeah.
But it definitely did feel like stuff like Getaway Rider was often a bit too slow. Even though Getaway Rider was fantastic this GP, I mean, it almost crushed. Like,
It wrecked me. It wrecked
almost,
you.
yeah, my deck was not prepared for Getaway Rider, which is good because that's specifically what I put Getaway Rider in the deck for. But yeah, if you do draw your threats, then it absolutely does seem like the deck works. Obviously, like kind of a Ragavan Falconeer Getaway Rider is really, really strong. So yeah,
Huh.
good on them for playing well, sticking the course.
Being a good
Maybe
representative
that
of the
is
deck.
perfect. Yeah.
But yeah.
But I think probably went off topic
Don't worry.
enough, and
People like to listen to us talk, right, guys? Well, anyways,
sure.
let's actually end this now. See you guys
Yeah,
next GP.
thanks for listening. This was GPQ.